there is a significant consideration to be given to the aspect of human failure. One cannot just simply live life with the expectation that things will work out, but at the same time, you can't really live life with the expectation that failure is an inherent part of it. There are people out there who live their lives on easy mode, who get through without really having to face hardship. And that's a very powerful and controversial statement to make, because hardship comes in different forms. One is hardship in the sense of sacrifice to achieve your goals. The other is hardships in the sense of random luck, where you might be dealt the inappropriate hand and be forced to make certain sacrifices to simply survive. And other hardships might simply be coming to terms with the aspects of life that no one is in control of: death and taxes, the inevitables. But there is still a truth that there are some people who achieve things with great streamline and those who do not. We tend to look at religion and philosophy to contextualize these concepts, considering the fact that those of us who don't achieve things in the first go around will simply do so when time is right, when the opportunity strikes. But again, that's just a numbers game, like the gambler's paradox. If you simply keep betting with an infinite amount of money, eventually you might hit the jackpot. But then again, nobody has an infinite sum of money. People only have their time. The greatest commodity that any person has in their life is time. You can't just waste it away trying to achieve something. But then again, that's probably the economy of time itself. What does valuing your time mean? It doesn't mean anything, really. If you weren't going to spend your time working, you'd probably spend it in your hobbies or sleeping. And the fatalist's mindset would be that in the end, if you're going to die and your memories will be wiped, and the only thing that really matters is the afterlife, what you did with your time is really quite arbitrary, as long as you lived your life through certain principles. So perhaps in reality, using someone's time to achieve their desires through the process of success and failures is the nature of life itself. But it's very easy to contemplate these things and be faced with failure. Failure itself is also a very complicated and controversial topic. You can fail as in lose. You can fail as in never succeed. You can fail as in never trying. They say you don't succeed in all of the shots you never take. And some people hide behind the other thing that if you never take a shot, you're never going to fail or feel the pain of failure. But perhaps those who succeed would say you either choose the regret of sacrifice or the regret of failure. But failure, in a complex dynamic sense, it's hard to pin down. Is it more powerful when your loved one calls you a failure? Or is it more powerful when you put your entire being into something and things don't pan out? Is the external quantification of your achievements and failures more powerful than your internal drive for them? I mean, who's to say who do you or what do you really want in your life? There's some people who spend years trying to figure it out. In many famous texts and literature, people say that it's only during their twilight years that they realize what they really wanted in life, now without any energy or time to invest to achieve it. So, this is where the modernist mindset comes in. Failure is a learning process as much as success is. You could even quantify this and simplify it even further and say just living is the learning process. And there are different ways. You can either try something and win, you can either try something and lose, you can either try something again and again and get different outcomes, even. Or you could try nothing and see where the stream takes you. But we are emotional creatures with strong social foundations. And when we fail at something that we try or others put us to, we have negative emotions. There's lots of psychology done into the science of emotions, or rather, science done into the psychology of emotions. People tend to try to simplify them into primary emotions, into social interactions. I mean, Kampf, Wagner, and all the philosophers of all of time have tried to psychoanalyze human minds. And I feel, honestly, they've all failed, because my personal understanding is that the human mind is quite flawed. It's a mesh of machinery and wiring. And yes, certain things work the way they are supposed to. Your cycle of breathing, your cycle of sleep and restfulness and waking up, your dietary and appetite stimulation centers. They're quite automated and they're quite complex. Your desire to have salty food when you're thirsty, your desire to have sugary food when you're about to go on a hunt, and your desire to have meat, anticipating a next generation. But in the more complicated aspects of emotion, I tend to think of it as automated emotions, complex emotions, and theoretical emotions. Automated emotions, hunger, greed, lust, they are the things that drive you written down in your chromosomes. And they're quite reflexive. Something happens, so you respond to them with emotions. The emotions then drive you into action. Then, from sort of intrinsic natural emotions, we have more complicated things. Things like thoughtfulness, melancholy, nostalgia. These are emotions that don't lead to anything. They can spring you into action, but the action is not reflexive and someone must contemplate on them. If someone does something bad to you, you get angry. But if you see bad things happening, you might not necessarily become angry. You might go into thoughtfulness, wondering, confused. You might sympathize with the plights of others, look back to your own plight. And then even more complicated emotions that really don't get us anywhere. Emotions that probably don't even have words anymore. Dysphoria, abstractism, self-actualization. Because they're so far away from our evolutionary instinct. We are machines and animals in the most basic sense, and when we put against this concrete jungle, we find it hard. Whereas why the power of emotions and failure come too. Let's look at that through the lens of those emotions. Primitive emotions. If you fail on a hunt, you will obviously be distraught and angry. The emotions exist there as a negative sort of catalyst to strengthen your memory in your basal ganglia centers and your cerebellum, and your frontal lobe to strengthen more powerful associations. You look at people who were the cause of the failure of the hunt and create negative relationships with them. You look at mistakes you do, and you look at the neuronal pathways that led to that mistake. You stepped the wrong way, you made a wrong move, you weren't looking the way you were, and you suppress those and accelerate those that were perhaps successful in other hunts. Now, more dynamic emotions, modern emotions. Suppose you sit down for an exam, you study hard, and you don't pass. Similar to that hunt, it exists in this nebulous area where certain pathways are accentuated and others are suppressed. You learn from it and you try again. And that's where it gets a bit complicated, because in these situations, in the modern world, we're not really hunting anymore, at least not for survival, if only for pleasure. But we still look at each other with a sense of emotions. We see people who might have failed and look at them as failures. And that's where we reach into the era of abstract emotions. The person who works a 9 to 5 job, stuck in the same pay scale day in, day out, who might not be the best of fathers or the best of wives, are they a failure? It's very subjective. You make a movie about them, they look like the victim. You make a movie about their son, they look like the villain. You make a movie about the society that they're brought up in, they're not a failure. They have been failed by the system. It's very hard to sort of just look at failure and say, you know what, I learned from this, especially when the emotions and the greater, more powerful aspect of time is there. Not every opportunity comes off every day. You might fail the hunt, but you can try tomorrow, or again, or again, or again. You might fail an exam, but you might give it the next rotation. That might be a few months away. But some things are life, once in a lifetime, actually. Some things only happen in a decade. The opportunity to land your dream job. How many of you listening to this are where you want to be in life? And only, and so how many of you are where you don't want to be because you took the wrong decision? Well, not really wrong, because that's where the emotions come back in, but you took a different decision. You decided something at a certain time, and now looking back, you would have decided differently, but you can't anymore. That decision was once in a lifetime. Your decision to leave home, your decision to get married, your decision to pick up a certain major, your decision to quit a job or accept one. Change your life forever. That decision you look back on, was it a failure? That chance you took and didn't succeed, did you fail yourself and everyone else? The emotions will always stay. And as looking back to it, you only have two options really: the pain of regret or the pain of sacrifice. There's no in between. You have to pick your poison, because that's what it always is with life. Whether it's your purpose, your goal, your death, taxes or traffic, or even failure. You can't do everything. You're just going to spend your life doing the three things, the things that come naturally: eat, drink, sleep, repeat. The things that are more dynamic: pay taxes, get a driver's license, pay your mortgage. And then at the very end, when all those things quiet down, you're going to sit and contemplate. And you'll have a choice in those times to do something with it, to either become part of a cult, to either become part of a religion, to either make something in life as abstract or scientific. Or you're going to look at everything as a failure. Everything really is about mindsets. And that's a offhand way of saying that I'm sorry, this argument was pointless. That's an argument. In fact, most arguments eventually boil down to that: mindset, point of view, perspective. That's just a way of stopping the argument, saying that actually we never found an answer, so let's just stop arguing. Because in the more solid things in life, there is an answer. 2 plus 2 is 4. Human beings can go to the moon, and the earth is 14 billion years old. 13, I don't remember exactly. But then there are things that are maybe a bit harder to pin down. Who is and isn't a failure? So in those situations, we tend to put things down to perspective. But it's funny to say and see how in the 21st century, we were all hungry for success, for the bright lights, for the dazzle and glimmer of society, for the newest of the new, for the brightest of the bright, for the hardest working of workers. In these situations, we're always wondering, if I don't get those things, am I a failure? No one will ever call you a failure. That's the funny thing. But there's this weird thing you hear in the back of your head. You always do. Where people say things, mention things. Oh, he never succeeded in that. He wasn't really committed. Oh, he's not really working hard enough. Those things reflect back to you. Was I working hard enough in my thing? Did I do the right thing? Why didn't I succeed that time? Am I doing the best that I can? Am I the best version of myself? And if not, am I a failure? We will all experience great failure at one point of our life. And every time we experience it, it's only a matter of time till we experience our next most powerful failure. Because every time we experience the next more powerful failure, it's just setting the benchmark. Well, we already failed that once. What's the second time? We'll fail it again. And the second time you fail, it hurts less. The third time, even less. The 10th or 11th time, you barely even notice, and you're back on your feet. Because that's the thing, we're animals, and it's all just a learning process. The emotions you're feeling are natural, they're the learning process, not the psychoanalysis, not the reflective practice, not the portfolio or essay paper that you wrote about your failure. Those emotions you felt when you didn't succeed, or you didn't get the thing you wanted, or people said something to you, those emotions are the learning process. You need to hold on to them and actualize them, because that's what's written in your chromosomes. I may have experienced great failure, or my failures might be nothing compared to what other people have failed. I might have learned something or nothing at all from my failures, but one thing is for sure. Every time it just gets a bit easier and you get a bit more numb.